What follows is an overview of Irfan Handukić's artistic development given by an art historian, Jelena Balević. During the first 20 years of creative work, which lasts over 4 decades, Handukić thematically, by painting and graphic art, almost exclusively addresses the nature and its own forms. Occupied by the landscape of Krajina, which inspired him with its geomorphological and aesthetic characteristics, forcing him to thinking about the manners of transposing the art and about his representational structural modulations, Handukić actually approached the graphics as his final artistic destination. Considering the formal stylistic attributes of this period of Handukić's artistic opus, from his early work over the complete transition to a graphic medium in 1997, there is a clear tendency for reducing the subject matter and converting it into pure character in the painting. Starting from the earliest of his works, the landscape of Krajina, which was made during 1972 and 1975, which represents the starting point of the artist's research in the field of visual elements and their relationships, the style qualities are spotted and they will be fully developed in the next cycles. Expressive colors, dynamic gesture with sporadic advances in terms of form and plans in the image. However, these early landscapes carry certain restlessness, the one which is characteristic for young artists' need of defining his own artistic expression. Although the artist primarily treated forms from nature, world in the image gradually takes the shape of one atypical reality that is inhabited with reduced subject motives, with the gradual phasing out of the third dimension. The role of the main element of the painting is taken over by the gesture, which will remain for a longer period of time a constitutive element of the subject, as well as a tendency towards the abstraction, which will largely be marked by Handukić's paintings. Significant steps further are the works from the cycle Geomorphic Structures, made from 1976 to 1980, in which the forms of nature are reduced to landscape signs that mark the painted space of specific compositional solutions, expressionistic or surreal style determination. The painter skillfully uses painting surfaces, and by composing them he builds space in the painting, elaborating their internal tonal relationships, using the different textures that contribute to a clearer differentiation of plants, a technique which will in later works, by the usage of different materials, flourish. These landscapes of amorphous or geomorphic shapes and expressionistic gestures are the individual proclamation of author and pictorial expression of his character, emotions, and states of mind. By evident alienation from the natural world, he searches for the indigenous world of the image, in which objects are revived thanks to their own life juices and the background turns, from neutral by completely unpredictable dynamic into a torrent of wild colors. In connection to this, Handukić shows the consistency in his creations. Through numerous formal and structural experimentation and dealing with different art techniques and procedures, he skillfully crosses the path from distinctive mimesis to complete transfiguration of objects from nature. The cycle Variations of Krajina, which was produced from 1981 to 1988, embody a new visual and conceptual thinking on a familiar topic. Landscapes that Handukić interprets are passed through the filter of his personal fiction and individual experiences. They are, in fact, a mental reflection of Krajina, blue and pink hills, orange, purple and dark blue fields, or monochrome rocks, which often take the role of the main motive in the paintings. Sometimes this motive, abstracted beyond recognition, is transferred to the sphere of the symbolic, while the entire subjected scene in the picture comes down to character. These works represent a logical continuation of the previous cycle, with the difference of transitioning the substantial forms in the foreground of the painting, with a significantly more neutral background. Extremely important innovation is raising the issue of a different plastic shaping, resulting from the permanent need for new painting methods, techniques, and materials, as well as their introduction into the tissue of the painting. Specifically, in dealing with primary pictorial elements, color, composition, texture, structure, and substance, the artist intervenes in the formal and structural background of the painting by the implementation of various elements of collage, cardboard, paper wallpaper, wood. The author goes a step further, transforms the canvas into the media pan board, and by cutting it, he creates stylized formats. The artist transforms even the pictorial tissue of the painting itself, introducing elements of a completely different art, the one that will be fully developed in the first cycle of Handukić's graphic art, Krajina and Kroz, that was produced from 1982 to 1989. By the medium of graphics, which is a new medium for this author, the distinction between his early works and those resulting from the 80s can be seen. In the process of generating an abstract, imaginary space, in the aforementioned graphics realized in the traditional techniques of etching, linocut, and aquatint, artists fully transposed subject into character. One can say that the parallel between Handukić's paintings and graphic works from this period lies in the arrangement of different colored surfaces, combination of techniques and materials, which, in the graphic work, is a result of a sequenced process of printing the graphics sheet. Stylishly, he is still defined by the abstract landscaping, nurturing the current practice of the serial development within a problematic cycle. The artist, partly by this graphic cycle, paraphrased simultaneous painting cycle Krajina, in which the structural heterogeneity of artistic works, resulting from combination of materials in the picture, is solved by maximum effect in graphics, creating a coherent pictorial unities of homogeneous structure. Immediately, he accesses to the disposition of individual segments of the painting and the structural modification of the painting field, where obtained components become fully autonomous entities in the image, but, although different, do not harm each other, and where the drastic formal and color contrasts do not lead to demolition of the unity. By this, he established a completely new visual aesthetics, in which pictorial elements receive particular character symbolic meaning. Already in the Kroz, artist conducts the elimination procedure in which many of the earlier present elements search for new artistic solutions, implying the minimalist concept in the future. Neutral solving of the background, monochrome color scheme, a high degree of simplification of amorphous forms whose differentiation is achieved by contour, horizontal or vertical hatching, or using one of the previously known patterns, are the main characteristics of these works. Although sometimes the idea of environment landscape in which forms reside can still be seen, a process that will lead to its complete disappearance is imminent. Handukić's works from the 80s fit in the general tendency of the graphics of a new sensibility, in which there is a freer and more immediate access to the graphic medium, but which requires greater flexibility of interpretation. The innovative visual concept that is propagated by the works of this graphic cycle will develop fully after 1997, when the primacy of graphics in Handukić's creativity will be fully secured. A different stream, whose origin is also found in variations of Krajina, is the oil paintings of larger format, entitled Landscape of the Area, that were produced from 1988 to 1991. The main motives of this cycle are the abstract forms emphasized by expressive connotations and new meaningful context, the so-called geomorphic totems. The accent is on the individual case, which becomes a carrier of meaning in the painting and autonomous pictorial entity. Marked by intense colors, strong gesture, and expressive line, these works represent a manifest of strong coloristic and formal expressiveness that is highlighted in dynamics and associative figuration on the border of abstract expression. While the artistic works created in the 80s are, in terms of content, related primarily to landscapes, works created in the next decade, from 1991 to 1997, variations of characters and pictograms, are thematically artificial in character, of an associative type with an emphasis on character symbols. Within this cycle, we can see two parallel flows of separate plastic structural properties. Their common denominator is the character definition, which speaks in favor of the idea of painting pictograms, the one that contains different, not visual elements, with the possibility of their separate visual communication. The fact that the painting was preceded by the artist's deep reflection on choosing, appearance, and manner of application of painting surfaces can be seen in works in which he, by using a variety of techniques and materials embedded in the fabric of the picturesque images, presented the associatively conceptualized plastic structure. Considering the fact that the texture created in that manner has special tactile values, the painter uses it in several ways. Formally, by defining the painting surface field in which he subsequently intervenes, and substantially by concentration of texture patterns and its thickening, which actually constitutes the dominant motive of the painting. The physical presence of non-pictorial structure of matter is the main characteristic of this part of the cycle. It suggests movement, forming a rudiment but very sturdy set of character compositions, raising the question of meaning and its functioning with the body of a painting. The end result has a feature of complete coherence, where non-pictorial material properties disappear, and their origin can only be speculated. The motive processed in this manner, the manifestation of the concentration of plastic happening in the painting, additionally stands out from its structural tissue by color and light, with the help of rich tonal elaborations and occasional accents of pure color, with the aim of intensifying the general pictorial dynamism, as well as specific solutions of light in the image, which seems to emerge from within its interior to the intended locations. This contributes to the use of delicate materials, like metallized aluminium foil, and techniques of working with it. The second current within this mentioned cycle represent the works in which the painter, by a combination of amorphous and geometric shapes, builds the dominant motive of sign determination, coloristically resolved by strong entanglements of pure colors, with expressed dynamism and gestures. Compositional confrontation of different colored fields and forms in these paintings also opens up, in addition to visual and plastic reading, a possible metaphorical discourse. The turning point in Handukić's creativity occurs in 1997, when the graphics as an art discipline becomes the primary medium of his artistic expression and artistic sublimation of all his ideological movements and visual language research. The graphics of this cycle, according to their characteristics, can be interpreted as writing in the painting, or pictograph, or artist's imaginary, minimalist artistic language of science pictograms. As pictogram is the oldest form of a letter, its performance, or graphics, can represent one isolated episode within a series of events, or graphic cycle. Within his graphics lives a unique and original world, which develops over the years, evolving, changing, and renewing in accordance with new ideas and technical innovations that the artist regularly conducts. Sophisticated visual geometrical structures, present motive of the graphics, Handukić's pictorial rebuses, will testify about the artist's aspirations for achieving well-tempered harmony of conceptual and process flows in the years to come. In the graphic medium will arise in a unique and original world of highly developed personal artistic expression, which was over the years changed and renewed in accordance with new ideas, technical innovation that the artist implemented by tireless listening of his own creative impulses. if we consider the general tendencies in graphics throughout the 20th century, it is obvious that the graphic medium has emancipator properties in relation to the artists and their work. This kind of creative liberation was observed in Handukić's work after 1997, when the graphics became the primary means of his artistic expression and the center of a new research in the field of visual elements. In the first works created after 1997, Handukić deals with strong contrasts in almost all structural elements. By contrasting the forms, combining strict geometric, fluid, and amorphous forms, he establishes the specific dynamics of the composition. Light-dark, empty-full, transparent-dark, or opaque represent some of the contradictions which the artist largely used in the designing the structural content in his graphic sheets. The contrast of colored surfaces and textures in practice means that the artist richly animates certain areas in linear and plastic way, brightens them and/or colors them, while others deeply shaded surfaces resolves completely uniformly. During the years that followed, following its own creative impulse, Handukić gradually won the creative space for research in the field of materials and in the field of matter. By entering into a number of highly complex problem flows, often tracing a suprematismatic theory, the artist showed a strong faith in his own creative process, in which he searches for balance and harmony in all presented structure. The minimalist concept foreshadowed in earlier works develops in the direction of the gradual release of almost all factual data of concrete forms, focusing on sophisticated geometric abstraction of rich texture and unusual compositional solutions. In his paintings, Handukić builds an original and unique world of specific legalities, which is full of layered construction of forms and their setting in the space of the painting, along with the constant innovation of technical solutions, high degree of intellectual and authentic expression, and quite unexpected situations. An important feature of Handukić's graphics is symbolism. It is expressed by a number of motives by whose repetition the artist emphasizes the message of a certain semantic discourse. With the appearance of symbols, the content aspect of Handukić's graphics is deepened, introducing an entirely new moment in the existing paradigm.
nazionale d'arte si è svolta nel 1993, la prima nella primavera, la seconda nella estate del 93. La prima edizione ha visto gli artisti viennesi in gemellaggio con gli artisti udinesi e già nella seconda edizione del 93 c'è stata la presenza di questi artisti all'interno della sede stabile del Centro Studi Arti Plastiche, nella sede di via Beato Dorico da Pordenone a Udine. Poi siamo arrivati all'edizione del 1996, a cui segue il quarto incontro nel 98 e fino ad arrivare a questa quinta edizione del 2002, quando vediamo artisti di varie nazionalità, Austria, Svizzera, Germania, Repubblica Ceca, Slovenia, Jugoslavia, Ungheria, confrontarsi con gli artisti del Centro Studi Arti Plastiche, che vediamo proporsi in numerose tecniche, numerose tematiche, sempre molto innovative, sempre molto attuali e anche molto ma molto personali.
Dio te pjesme. Likovno vaspitanje. Boja uz boju, crta uz crtu, sa kistom si u duginom vrtu. Sunce se smješka, nebo i ptici ostaju zauvijek da žive na slici. Sada bih zamolio autora, gospodina Irfana Handukića, da kaže par riječi o motivima, o dalekosežnosti jednog, koliko je meni poznato, jedinstvenog projekta ove vrste u našoj sredini.
Pozdravljam prisutne i hvala na odzivu. A ovo što smo se sastali večeras je meni prvi rad ove vrste i s obzirom na kulturu, umjetnost koja je dio našeg života, a mi koji smo uključeni u nastavni proces, u pedagogiju, praktiku i tako dalje, uvijek smo ti koji razmišljamo zapravo o nekim putevima koji će omogućiti razvoj kulture i umjetnosti dalje na principima upravo onih svih datosti, metodskih i tako dalje. Ja sam zaista dugi niz godina razmišljao o ovome, zapravo sama grafika kao umjetnost, ona je jedan specifikum, to sam malo čas govorio, i od svih drugih područja ona zapravo i traži da se ide i od mladih dana, zapravo od djece, učenika, vrlo male dobi, do starijih srednjoškolaca, da im se zapravo unosi već ova kultura koja je vrlo kompleksna, ali istovremeno posebna, velim, u odnosu na sva druga područja. Insistirao sam na tom zapravo što grafika je toliko privlačna, to sam i napisao i moguće uvijek ići dalje na tom putu istraživanja, zapravo i kad se ona nađe kao disciplina u rukama djece, mladih i tako dalje i tako dalje. Ovo je samo jedan prilog, kako je i naveo jedan od recenzenata, da bi se sljedećim kolegama pojavio isti motiv s kojim bi oni i dalje nastavili eventualno na ovom putu. S obzirom da sam i ja grafičar, onda mene samo ovo i područje interesovalo i nadam se da sam dao svoj prilog i našoj nastavi, našim odgajateljima, profesorima, nastavnicima, studentima i tako dalje, malo da neke stvari tu provjere, da se upute, a istovremeno i, kažem, daju i svoje neke nove mogućnosti na tom planu. Hvala lijepo.
Dobro večer. Ja moram priznati da je meni osobito drago da mogu da kažem nekoliko riječi i rečenica o knjizi jednog likovnog umjetnika, a znamo da je izuzev egzemplarnog dževada Hoce, slikari, likovni umjetnici ne vole pisati knjige. Sticajna okolnost. Knjiga kolege Irfana Handukića je djelo koje je i u profesionalnom smislu, dakle u smislu teme knjige grafika kojom se on bavi, i drugo veoma značajno angažmana kolege Handukića pedagogija, odnosno metodika likovnog odgoja. Riječ je naravno o likovnoj umjetnosti u osnovnim i srednjim školama. Nažalost znamo kako je stanje s tim u našem školstvu, ali ova knjiga je u svakom slučaju dobrodošla. Ne zbog toga što mi nemamo literature o grafičkim tehnologijama, grafičkim tehnikama itd., nego zbog toga što je ova knjiga prilagođena uzrastima sa kojima kolega Handukić zapravo djeluje i generacijama djece od predškolskog uzrasta do negdje 18. godine ili završetka srednje škole, dakle mladim ljudima koji pored obaveza u nastavi likovnog odgoja u onim školama u kojima taj predmet uopće postoji, mogu da nađu motive i razlog za vlastiti rad.
Ja ću sebe unaprijed diskvalificirati ovom prilikom i nazvat što sukob interesa. Prije svega što smo zajedno odrastali, on je upućen preko puta, zato što je bio moj student. I moram vam priznati da ću biti jako pristrasan i zbog toga što je pozitivno iz studijeva napravili izvrsne grafike. Mi smo sate i sate pričali o nijansama, o krivičnosti, nijansama bijelih tonova i boja i tako dalje. Ta njegova energija i ta njegova krivičnost rezultirala i ovu knjigu. O knjizi dobro je da je se i pričala, recenzije postoje koje su, znači, prošla je kritičke sudove. Ja mogu samo napomenuti da je knjiga društveni akt, da je knjiga društveni akt, da je rezultat timskog napora i izdavača, recenzenata, da ne govorim o ovome. No, tako nisu svima skupa često. No, ima još jedan moment, možda i nije vrijeme da pričamo, a to je uloga kolege Handukića u situaciji kada se pojavljuje kao autor, kao kompletan autor. Znači, tekstna izvora uzmanom slikovnom, tekstovnom informacijom, sam se služi kompletnom realizacijom Photoshopom i kompletnim oblikovanjem. Tako da je izdavač imao jednu šansu da na CD-u faktički dobije knjigu. To je jedan novi moment, no kroz sileski smije ove promocije, no na to treba upozoriti možda nekom drugom. Još jedan čestitam. output, pa izdavačima
meni kao umjetnika nastojali da se što više samo diskvalificiraju. Evo, meni je onda jedna inače jako teška uloga koja mi je pripala da govorim poslije i na neki način olakšana. Sad, koliko ću ja...
Njihove značenske funkcije preklapaju sa pitanjima koja se tiču životnih formi. Neuvažavanje dakle ovih smisaonih formi vodi u stvaranje onoga što Ustav naziva pukim činjeničnim ljudima, u odnosu u kojima se obrazovanje zamjenjuje za informiranje. To je velika opasnost.
An important motive in his graphics is the stylized letters of the Arabic script, the harfs, which force the graphic sheet to adopt certain properties of the literary. These are actually connected to the very nature of the image, its properties and role. If it, by its features, communicates with the viewer on a strictly visual level, and if the observer succeeds by mere observation to explore its hidden meaning, then painter's mission was successful. But if its visuality is supplemented by the elements of language, like letters or words, then the field for decrypting the message that we want to send inevitably expands, though it is not necessarily simplified. Those who succeed to understand it by perceiving its entire content are the real audience of these works. The artist's desire to establish with the audience this multi-layered communication is not easily achievable, but it is an important task that he sets for himself. Thanks to this literal capacity, each of Handukić's graphics becomes a complex, separate sheet for reading the presented content and symbolic messages. The artist's interest in the letter is just one of the cultural legacies that he will deal with. Later, he will delve into the esoteric, ritual, deal with the remains of ethnological heritage, both ancient and those less known exotic cultures, primarily due to his personal interest in some of the oldest products of human spiritual sphere embodied in the material. In graphics, the artist revives the theme concerning the development of the first scripts and languages, transforming the graphic sheet into a table with the first written pictorial letters, evoking the constant human need for communication. Crossing the same historical trajectory in graphics, Handukić repeats the development pattern according to which pictograms evolve into ideograms, holders of certain words and terms that can mutually be brought into relationships and form associations, and then in logograms, characters that represent individual words. There is a number of thoughtful and formal analogies between Handukić's graphics and the oldest known writing, cuneiform script, and its structural elements can be recognized in the forms and structures of Handukić's graphics. Being that the process of concretization was characteristic for the development of the script in general, that becomes apparent in the development of Handukić's graphics in the years to come. During these years, in Handukić's graphics, in a formal sense, prevails composition filled with squares, rectangles, triangles, basic forms of suprematism, by which he creates a new, purely intellectual, parallel reality based on pure forms of straight lines that do not exist in nature and indicate the superiority of man's creation and the superiority of mind over matter. In addition to geometric forms, Handukić introduces meander motif, which becomes an important element of his graphics, a symbol that occurs throughout the history of art from the earliest period of human creativity in all its forms: architecture, plastics, ceramics, painting, and applied art. By the symbolism of meander, he introduces a number of interpretations on the theme of infinity, circular life cycles, paradigm of continuum, endless repetition, and other related topics. And his form, which he elaborates in a number of ways, fits perfectly into the represented existing geometric abstraction. By 2001, Handukić works on the cycle Uns Muayana, in which he establishes that iconography which will be largely kept to this day. It is a poetic based on geometric compositional scheme of the abstraction of symbolic context, which is characterized by sharp contrasts of light and dark surfaces, and specific forms of fragmentary character, multi-layered semantic definitions that emerge from the dark surface background. It has an accented formal structure, a variety of textures, and the artist elaborates it in a linear manner, by fields of free light shadings, arabesques, and through plastic elements that resemble collage, cubism, whereby each, thanks to the well-planned dramatic, reaches the center of events in the picture. Plastic layer and visual effect of Handukić's graphics is enriched by always different geometrical and stylized passages of different textures, by which the overall dynamics is accelerated. Coloring is reduced to neutral earth tones. The emphasis is on form, its structure and implementation on the graphical field, and development of mutual relationships among presented forms, geometric and amorphous structures, as well as their composing into the complex unity. These relationships are formed in two ways: as a product of technological process and the nature of the material, as well as the result of a reflective process on the subject of structural integration of disparate elements into coherent sets, harmonious graphic parts. By repetition of, as at first sight it might seem, the same or similar aforementioned forms that are semantically main factors of Handukić's recognizable iconography, the artist creates a separate graphic cycles. In the period between 2002 and 2003, Handukić is working on graphics that he unites under the same title, Great Tidal Wave from the Ocean. During this cycle, the artist is fully devoted to meander motif, whose formal dominance is a product of developmental process from previous years. Formal modification of the mentioned motive is obvious, behind whose underlying forms is a strong philosophical weft. In the present context, it is insisted on the full structure of the mentioned motive, with certain formalist variations that are in the service of a strong graphic rhyming. In the cycle Paths of Heaven that was made between 2004 and 2005, the graphic sheet in its structural sense is almost completely homogenized. Compared to the previous work, the general impression is at a certain level, compliance of forms, surfaces and textures, thus creating a harmonious unity of ornamental structural features, mostly with decorative character. According to the actual name of the cycle, the general toning down is evident, the one which was the result of previous strong contrasting of almost all visual elements. Previous conflicts of vertical forms and compositional unities with sharp corners completely disappear. The contrast is in coloristic diversity and textures, whether it is on ornamental surfaces or forms of geometric shapes. An important novelty is the use of diverse color palette. In the following graphics, in the period from 2006 to 2009, this palette becomes an integral part of a graphic sheet, a new integral component of Handukić's graphics as a whole. Painted surfaces of blue, orange or red occur in the form of still, soft and consistent surface background as frames for thick decorative structure with amorphous ornament figures, but at the same time becomes the generating component of dominant motives in the picture. The relation between different types of presented forms is especially interesting. Particularly in this cycle, the artist deals with what was started much earlier, questioning the relation between strict geometric forms, which are artificial by their origin, with amorphous soft forms of organic origin. Handukić expresses his thoughts about the world surrounding him, the world of duality, in which, in parallel, exist living matters from nature and other creations, confirmation of the human agent. Maybe there are other types in terms of duality, an ideal embodied in solid geometric shapes and imperfections of amorphous forms. In any case, it can be a discourse known from the theory of suprematism, concerning the rivalry between nature, the ultimate creator, and the world of human creation, with which the previous one necessarily intersects in every step of the way. The artist expressed his thoughts through the organic forms, which originate from nature, and presented them in the manner of decorative forms, with their hatches resembling the system of blood vessels, which was confronted by motives of artificial origin, uniform monolithic geometric structures. The specificity of two close cycles, east wind carries the scent of curls and abandoned shade, which was produced from 2008 to 2009, represents a certain amount of sensitivity, which for the first time and up to this level appears in Handukić's graphics. The abstract is here supplemented by associative, which enables free interpretation of pictorial elements and their character symbolic meaning. This visual and plastic art is complemented by metaphorical, while maintaining the achieved level of abstraction. The works of these cycles are characterized by typical forms which possess a certain amount of elegance, as well as detailed tonally developed color tangles. Some of the possible topics are the four basic elements of nature, as well as the establishment of a relationship, or the connection. Its wavy forms symbolize the continuity and infinity, and vertically given couples of fragmentary form with surfaces of elaborated decorative arabesques are connected by a network of lines. One possible interpretation of the presented work may concern the deep philosophical questions concerning the relationship between matter and energy, form and content, nature and spirit. In 2010, Handukić performs a completely distinctive graphic experiment, which is why the graphics created in this period stand out in comparison to other Handukić's creativity. Cycle Sofra is created as a reflection of one of the founders of abstract phenomena in modern art, Piet Mondrian, and represents a paraphrase of his most famous works. By establishing a direct analogy with Mondrian composition, Handukić plays with solutions of neoplastic painting, setting Sofra with the famous squares thus offered for consumption. Regardless whether it is a parody or a harmless play, common thing for both artists is the creative aspiration towards achieving perfection and harmony in the painting. In the cycle Homa, which occurs in 2011, the artist revives some of his earlier graphic experiences with syncretism that includes previously generated poetics. As the title of the cycle states, it is a religious ritual of bringing the sacrificial gifts to the fire, which is present in many exotic religions, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, and so on. Here we can fully observe Handukić's specific interests present also in previous years. By studying of various less explored cultures, the artist goes into the search for inspiration and to find possible answers to questions regarding the conditions of the human spirit, the origin of the spiritual in man, and for the sake of discovering different archetypal patterns. Different human communities are getting in contact with the divine through similar sacred rites and magical rituals originating from ancient times, and are still present with the aim of discerning into the inaccessible and unexplored realms of human consciousness and subconsciousness. Hence, the dominant motive in these graphs arose the motive of fire or flame, which is indicated in combinations with square, rectangular forms that, like hearts, represent the place of performing an action and solid frameworks that do not allow the fire to burn too fast. In the figurative sense, discipline is always present and obviously necessary. If flair and passion become unrestrained, a desire or a drive becomes too great. The most recent graphic works can be divided into two parts. Works created at the beginning of 2012, the cycle of Rivers Flow, and the ones which Handukić works on from 2012 to today, the cycle The Landscape Tree and Patente 1 and 2. First cycle is characterized by horizontal compositional unities, in which the dominant motive is the watercourse, amorphous forms placed in the lower third of graphic sheet. By their fragmentation, rotation, relocation, transposing the originally presented abstract landscape, he creates different variations on the theme. When we speak of works created after 2012, we are really talking about two clearly differentiated motives that Handukić in these prints processes in different ways. It can be said that earlier amorphous forms experienced a sort of subject representational transformation into the expressionist form of fauvistic connotation. highlighted by formal structures and multi-layered semantic definition. Contrasted forms are, to them, correct geometric shapes in complementary colors. Dramatization is based on their mutual confrontation. All-consuming organic forms eroding the artificial creation. The action is happening at the moment of observation of the image. Tension grows, and the observer is eagerly awaiting its outcome. The fight is constant, but the question is whether the outcome might be anticipated due to passive or monolithic immobility of the ones, and because of continuous movement, increase, and distraction of the others. In Handukić's graphic oeuvre after 1997, there is a process change that does not substantially endanger his, to a large extent, coherent and dynamic creative system. The path he has crossed from the first landscapes to abstract graphics is actually the same philosophical path that starts from the consideration of the visible world of nature and leads to the world of intellect, characters, symbols, to the discovery of truth by understanding of the mysteries of existence and reality. This was the road of Irfan Handukić for over 4 decades of active creation in the field of fine arts, constantly working to expand his own reflections on art for the sake of not just his own development, but also what Henry Moore said. If an artist tries consciously to do something to others, it is to stretch their eyes, their thoughts, to something they would not see or feel if the artist had not done it. To do this, he has to stretch his own first.
ovdje namjerno donio sada mapu koja u svom sadržaju posjeduje grafske listove od 1997. do 2003. Mada sam, evo, izložba koja je bila u Zagrebu, tu je bio od 2000 do 2003. S obzirom da nisam odavno imao izložbu edukača, htio sam malo retrospektivno da to bude postavljeno i da imam tu nekakav svoj izravno od tih geomorskih struktura, ne znam koje su bile, sa jednim oblikom i znakom, do ovog sad do ovog materijala koji je instalaciju, koji prezentira zapravo pokretnu sliku i sam ambijent samog takozvanog očišćenog meandra, koji je jedna dinamika, jedna supstanca koja zapravo govori o nečemu što je krajnji izričaj.
Oni koji su pratili vaš rad, vjerujem da će prepoznati što se znači krije u dijelima koji su večeras izloženi, no da li biste nam kazali postoje li određene znači specifičnosti u stvaralačkom radu koji večeras prezentujete?
Tačno, ja sam to i uvodno rekao da oni koji su na jedan način pratili mogu da prepoznaju koje su to vizure, zapravo koji su to oblikovni momenti bili u tim procesima da bi danas mogli savladavati ovu grafiku kakva je. Tačno, ja sam slikar po nekoj evokaciji, prirodnoj nekoj sklonosti gdje sam ja i počeo zapravo. I bilo je meni lako preći brzo na medij koji ima jednu čistoću, jednu određenost, jednu strogost, da kažem, jer ja se bavim perfekcionizmom. Mene ne interesuje bilo kakve muzika, nikak kombinovanje i tako dalje, ovo je čiste, kažete bilo kulture. Ne znam, o tom svijetu, već je napisano dosta, zapravo i ovaj sam tekst koji vi imate od gospođe Margarite, koja prati u kabinetu grafike Hazu, ona je vrlo na jedan jasan, sasvim, kako bi rekao, situacijski način izvela jedan predznak zapravo što je to jedinstvo oblika i znaka.
Može se kazati da stvarate već 30 godina. Bišćani ste, ja ću zamoliti da posjetimo se malo na vaše početke, kako je to izgledalo, znači prije 30 godina.
Bio sam uvijek vezan za ambijent u kojem živim. Naravno, svi mi počinjemo od tog djetinjstva. Mi smo imali tu veliku stvar da u ovakvom ambijentu, kao što je Bihać, u ovoj prirodi, tako dalje, zapravo svako za sebe nađe jedan djelić čime će se družiti likovnom materijom, oblikujući to i naravno, ako je bilo da držimo čekicu ruci, ne znam, pravimo ton.
Ovo je 9. izložba ove godine na našem prostoru i ovaj današnji termin smo ostavili za jednu grafičku izložbu, a nešto detaljnije sam u tome reći će povjesničarka umjetnosti i direktorica kabineta grafike Hrvatske akademije znanosti i umjetnosti, gospođa Margarita Seštav-Šin.
Ja vas sve pozdravljam i istaknut ću da mi je izuzetna čast pozdraviti Irfana Handukića, koji je gost galerije Kroz, i istakla bih da je ovo jedan grafički događaj u Zagrebu, da nam dolazi grafika koja ima svoje specifično podneblje. Riječ je o profesoru Likovne akademije u Sarajevu, o studentu velikog Đela Hoze, u biti jednoj oazi tradicionalne grafičke tehnike, zaljubljeništva u matricu, u matrični kod i grafički kod. Pred nama su grafike gradnje matricom, gradnje kombiniranim tehnikama, kada sam poetski koncept tih specifičnih topografija u kojima prepoznajemo podneblje bosansko-hercegovačke grafike i njihove tradicije i ikonike, postaje poetski koncept. Riječ je o slogu koji ima svoje specifično pismo, uvijek raspoznatljivo, i rekla bih da sam, kad sam pred nekoliko godina u Galeriji Matice Hrvatske prvi put vidjela te grafike, naprosto raspoznala to što ću opet istaknuti, specifično podneblje bosansko-hercegovačke grafike, njenog na neki način dekora koji zaziva asocijacije i na tu specifičnu povijest. Eto, s time bih se predstavila i preporučila profesora Irfana Handukića.
Hvala vam. Ja vas pozdravljam u Zagrebu. Imam posebnu, kako da kažem, svoju ideju koju sam donio, koju želim da predstavim ovdje, da kolege i ljubitelji grafičke umjetnosti to prepoznaju, a ono što mi je značajno je da sam u ovoj galeriji, ova galerija zaista, ono što sam ja do sada mogao da pratim, je izvanredan prilog uopće umjetnosti grafike. Ovdje u okruženju, a sigurno i u određenom dijelu Evrope. Mislim da treba nastaviti sa ovim radom što se tiče galerije, što se tiče njenih ljudi koji vode. Ja samo mogu da prenesem najbolje svoje zadovoljstvo što sam uspio da donesem grafike, da se i ovdje vide, jer Matica Hrvatska, kako je kolegica gospođa Margarita kazala, je to uradila, ali to je bio koncept koji je dosta ranije urađen. Ovo su najnovije grafike koje se danas mogu vidjeti na mnogim bijenalama u svijetu, koje ja šaljem redovno. Ništa, na kraju samo da vas lijepo pozdravim, da vam bude ugodan neka recepcija za vas i drago mi da smo Sofiju, da se družimo večeras. Ovdje ćemo to. I evo, hvala vam lijepo.